Hey everyone, welcome back. So I know I'm not in the van anymore, but I've been really enjoying these cooking videos that are barely a recipe. And one of the things that I find is that people tell me that being vegan is complicated, that they can't have the things that they love, and they have to spend a ton of time in the kitchen. And I'm here to tell you that's not true, because while I do love a complicated recipe and to spend time in my kitchen, you guys know that if you've watched any of my other videos, either here or on the main channel, my kitchen is my happy place. However, there is also lots of recipes that you can make that don't require basically any time in the kitchen, or barely any time in the kitchen. And the recipes I made when I was camping in the van are proof of that. So today we're going to make a pumpkin pie, and we're going to make a super simple pumpkin pie because my youngest Jamie is coming over and we're going to have dinner. And the first thing I'm going to do is make a pumpkin pie because it needs to cool in the fridge. For those of you who are whose Thanksgiving is coming up, and obviously the holidays are coming up, whether you celebrate them or however you celebrate them, this is the time of year when there are those types of events, and people like to make the traditional recipes. And sometimes you get invited to a place for a meal, and you want to bring something that's vegan, but that's also delicious enough that the non-vegans won't take offense to eating weird vegan food. So this is another one of those recipes that's barely a recipe, and it's my super simple pumpkin pie. And here's why it's super simple. First of all, I think if you've watched my apple pie video, you know that I am for some reason challenged when it comes to making a pastry crust. I do need to practice on that, and I will. So we're going to use this graham cracker crust. I've already had this open, and it's this Keebler one, so we're going to use that as the crust. Again, super simple. I'm going to use the EDSmith pumpkin pie filling. The recipe, if you were going to make it traditionally, would call for eggs and things like that you would add to this, but we're not, because in order to get it to thicken, we're going to use cornstarch, and that's going to be our thickener. And while this already has spices in there, I always find that it's a little bland, so I'm going to add a little bit extra of the pumpkin pie spice, and that's it. We're going to whisk that up, and we're going to put it in the pie shell, and we are going to bake it, and that is it. So the first thing I'm going to do is preheat my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I do, for my pies, have this reusable pie shield, and it works well with my pie plates when I am making my own sort of crust. Again, I don't do a very good job of it, but I have made it in the past badly. But unfortunately, it's too big for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my own little pie shield, the crust shield, because I find that baking this, because this does need to bake for an hour, it ends up kind of making the crust at the top a little too overcooked. So I'm taking this little shield that comes with this crust, and I'm taking some aluminum foil. We're going to make our own, and we can save this for, sorry if I'm flashing you, not that kind of flashing, with that, because it's pretty bright. So I'm just going to trace around here, but that's not where I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut inside there about, I don't know, half an inch-ish, just over a centimeter. And you can save this to use again later. So now, you don't have to do this, but I do find that it makes a difference whether you're using a regular pie crust or a cookie or graham cracker pie crust. There. So now I have that, and it will fit on this perfectly. So we'll just set that aside. All right, to the fun part. The trick is to make sure that that cornstarch is well mixed in with your filling. So you can put this in a blender, or you can just give it a really good whisk. I wouldn't use tapioca starch for this because the tapioca starch makes it a little gummy, if that's the right word. So now you need about a 1/4 cup of the cornstarch, which is 4 tablespoons or 60 milliliters. And I'm going to add a teaspoon of the extra of the pumpkin pie spice mix. You don't have to do this, but like I say, I find that it doesn't end up being very flavorful just with what's in the can. And so now you just want to really give this a good mix. You can mix this with your hand mixer as well, or in your blender. Just make sure that you've done a really good job. And you know what else I'm going to put in here? A little dab of maple syrup. So a little dash of maple syrup, maybe, I don't know, a tablespoon. Just add a little bit of extra flavor. Obviously, if you are really good at making a pie crust, put a regular pie crust around this, or you can actually buy frozen pie crusts that are accidentally vegan. Yeah. All right, so now I'm going to just pour this in here. That's it. I mean, for anybody who says being vegan is hard, or that you can't have the treats, the foods that you are used to eating, they're just making it more difficult than it needs to be. And I actually plan on making a video for beginners who are just deciding that they want to go plant-based, just with some really simple recipes and just hints, tips that I found were really useful when I went vegan, or the mistakes that I made as well, because, you know, I did overcomplicate things as well. All right, so now we're just going to pour this in here. And the cornstarch will give this its thickness and make it solid, like the eggs would in a traditional pumpkin pie. So now I am going to put that pie shield on here, just to protect the edges. Just sort of bend it, crimp it around. Not 100% necessary step, but I think it makes a big difference. So that's it. That's going to go in the oven for an hour at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when it comes out, you got to really let it cool. Preferably let it cool to room temperature, and then put it in your fridge for a couple hours before you cut into it, because that really makes the filling get nice and solidified. I'll see you back here when it comes out. It's been an hour, the pie's done. I'm going to pull it out, and then we're just going to let it sit here until it comes to room temperature, and then I'm going to put it in the fridge to let it fully cool, because that is a necessary step when you're using cornstarch versus the eggs. So let's get it out of there. Just going to pull this off. I'm glad I used that little bit of a pie shield because this would definitely be a little too brown if I hadn't. So we're just going to let it sit here. And I'm going to resist the urge to taste it until it's nice and cool. But once it's done, I will show you what it looks like sliced. Anyways, guys, I hope you try this recipe. It's not a complicated recipe. Like I said, it barely counts as a recipe. It's basically just my way of showing you, if you're new to plant-based eating, if you're new to a vegan lifestyle, that you don't have to overcomplicate things. Certainly, I have made pumpkin pie from scratch a lot, but this is, again, super fast. You barely have to do anything, and it is delicious. There is a lot of time to wait for it to cool off, but you would do that with any pie anyways, because you wouldn't eat a regular pumpkin pie when it was hot because the filling would be too soft. So yeah, I hope you give it a try. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you try it. You probably make your own crust, and I will, I promise, try making my own pie crust again. It's been quite a few years since I've tried it because I have been kind of discouraged by my attempts being really kind of tough versus light and flaky. In the meantime, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're staying safe out there, and I'll see you next time.